like, do you think it's just lack of communication between the wrestlers and the office that's going on?
And I think at the end of the day, some talent just lacks the experience.
And we're back for another Book to Draw podcast, the smartest wrestling podcast in all the galaxy.
I think we're reaching other galaxies by this point.
Other galaxies within the Milky Way, and
if we keep going, I feel like Thanos is going to find another stone to try to snap his fingers.
We are expanding the professional wrestling audience into astrology, and the astrologists are coming in and inventing new galaxies because we're putting forth so much professional wrestling knowledge in one single podcast.
Now there's rumors, and I'm not saying they're true. I can't, but I'm just saying there's rumors that Stan Lee actually wrote this, and there's a bunch of different like worlds where we're talking, and we're the smartest wrestling podcast in each one of those worlds.
The other dimensions. In the Book to Draw podcast, in the other dimensions, it's our podcast that's the best and the smartest. And there's other like imitations, but they're not quite on this level. So
like there's actually statues in cities about this podcast.
I heard that too. And so let's be grateful that we're in this dimension and we get access to the Book to Draw podcast with Mr. Marvelous and Big Michael Elgin.
Yeah.
And we're continuing on with this Maple Leaf Pro. I think we've kind of put ourselves in this corner that like we want to make it to October. Does that sound so? I think
at least I'd like to see, it seems like October 3rd, a plug for them, Mattamy Center. It is sold out. Mm-hmm. I believe they announced on actually this program it will be live on my AEW, right? Like that was the first mention. So we're actually plugging their show, and we're hoping that everything we've been seeing leads to a fantastic show. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart because I know that. Listen, I say this: Scott D'Amore and Don Callis did me dirty, and the only thing that I care about is the growth of Canadian independent wrestling, which actually plays a big part in this episode because we had, part 3 of the sit down with Adam Copeland leading to October 3rd. And he did bring up a lot of Canadian independent wrestling and the opportunities that MLP is giving to talent that he didn't have when he broke in, that I didn't have when I broke in. So like, I genuinely want this company. Like, I want people to go, oh, there's, WWE and AEW are up here. And then there's like MLW, TNA, and MLP. Like, genuinely, that's what I hope for Maple Leaf Pro. So
and I think with, like, we go back and forth on a number of things on this show. But I think if they can get all their ducks in a row for that October show and make it one really kick-ass, flawless as you can get in terms of a show, I think it would really put everything on the map and kind of, really set things up for the long term, and especially because they've got buzz, they've got legitimate buzz, they've got eyes on them, and they'll have a good crowd. So
and Toronto's one of those cities where even on indie shows in like downtown Toronto, I remember when Super Kicked first started and it was just called Fight. Ashley Six had started it, and then when he joined up with Kris Chambers, it was Super Kick, but it used to be just called Fight. And we would run it in like a small, I forget the building name, but what's his name? The comedian that's real big from Canada that's always on Joe Rogan, Ari Shaffir, used to show up to that show all the time. Like it was, and that crowd was always fantastic. Pretty much every show I've ever done in Toronto, going back to the Ted Reeve Arena. I've done Mattamy Center for Ring of Honor. And what was the other one we did out near the airport?
Hershey Center
in Mississauga. No, it was like a convention center. I forget which one it was. I wrestled Kevin Steen there. But like every audience I've ever been in front of in Toronto, even at the indie level, was always super lively, always wanted to be into the show. So a sold out Mattamy Center with somebody like Adam Copeland on, I would have to believe it's going to be a very, very hot crowd.
And just for comparison's sakes, to kind of put everything together succinctly, how would you compare it to audiences in Japan, in the United States, and Europe? Because I can talk a bit about American and Europe. I've been a little bit in front of Japanese audiences, but what I would say is that the Canadian fans get really, rambunctious and
Yeah,
into
it's
it.
like,
And
I think because for so long, Canada, even though I would say it's like an indie hotbed, it wasn't a worldly hotbed. So I think hoping that the eyes get on that October 3rd show, especially with it being live on my AEW, it feels like the crowd themselves want the Canadian wrestling scene to be looked at upon as a great scene. So they're one of the best, honestly, one of the best crowds I've been in front of. There's different, like Arena Mexico is amazing on a Friday night. Grand Prix, the crowd's insane. Cork and Hall is actually one of my favorite places. I would say for me, Tokyo Dome's good, but those domes, the sound goes up. So when you're in the ring, you can't really tell how into it people are. But like Osaka Joe Hall and Corkin, I mean, when those two crowds are going crazy, whoa! I mean, it's insane. And I think it was what 20? No, I forget. It was 2018, but it was the G1. The finals were Tanahashi and Ibushi and Budokan. And Budokan's another one that's just unreal. Sumo Hall's unreal. So it's like, I really think when Toronto's hot, it's on that level. It really is.
Well,
like,
I mean, don't forget Hulk Hogan and The Rock at Mania. That was Toronto.
That was the year that. Funny story about that.
Mm.
WrestleMania 18, 2002. Yep. I went to that show. I spent my money from working at Teddy's in Oshawa, $800, and I was third row for that. And then,
which side? Camera side?
I was opposite entrance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, and then not only that, that was the same day that after the show, I got handed a flyer that was a 2-week wrestling camp that summer in Burlington, Ontario. And that was the summer that I started pro wrestling. I went to a 2-week camp and I had my first match after 2 weeks. Mind you, I did, Monday to Friday. Then I did their regular weekend classes, and then I did Monday to Friday again. And that Friday night was the show. But I did have my first match after 12 days of training.
So, yeah. So going back, Hulk Hogan and The Rock, that was Toronto crowd. Another one that stands out off the top of my head was Sami Zayn. That was in Montreal. But same Canada. I think it all goes together. But what I want to say is Toronto, or I mean just Canada, for this October show, the fans fucking bring it. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember another show. I don't remember. I think it's got to be 2002. It was a triple threat. They did like 2 nights. They did like a Raw and a SmackDown back to back in Toronto. And SmackDown had like a triple threat with RVD, Kurt Angle, and Stone Cold. And man, did that crowd want to see RVD win the belt that night. And I remember that night, like the crowd was almost, not quite because it's Hogan and Rock, but like you could legitimately compare them at certain points when it looked like RVD was going to win the title compared to Rock and Hogan.
Wow, nice. Well, on that note, we'll move on to the business at hand. And we've got Maple Leaf Pro in their second block of tapings. They're well into the thick of things. Do you want to riff some thoughts, or do you want to just jump right in? What do you think?
I want to start this on a high note, but there's also going to be the ongoing theme, right? I feel that every week it's just an easy television show to watch. I think there's multiple factors that go into that. I believe wrestling TV, 60 to 90 minute block is like the perfect time for TV. That's just personally me. 2 hours sometimes can be a little stretch, but like 60 to 90 minutes is perfect. And they have great video packages. Mauro does everything he can to not only talk about the wrestlers for the most part. There was a couple times where I felt he talked about one rather than both wrestlers in the matches on this episode, but he does a great job of trying to get over the story that they're doing. And the booking itself, like the stories they're going, they are easily followed. The problem, which has been almost every week, is the execution of the in-ring doesn't necessarily flow perfectly with the booking that's going. And in a really well-booked wrestling promotion, all those pieces have to fall in line, right? So it's got to be great booking, great in-ring, great promos, great video packages, great announcers that help tell the stories, and they have the great video packages, they have the great announcers calling the stories, and they have great stories. But the in-ring and the promo is kind of where they're missing the details that help the wider story that will also complement the commentary putting over the stories that they're very clearly going in the direction of, and the video packages and editing. And it's a very clean product. I mean, if I'm watching MLP compared to TNA, like the quality of the MLP, like TV, the cameras, the look, the lighting, everything is much higher quality for MLP than it is for TNA right now. So it's like they have such good things that I hope at one point they really work on having the guys really focus, guys and girls, focus on their promos to help tell the story, because the promos have to tell the story that the in-ring and the angles are going to. And like when we get to it, there is a promo here that you really could have helped explain something that happened earlier in the show, but there was no real explanation. And we'll get to that when we get there, when we'll see it. And again, this is not a knock necessarily on the talent, because there's some talent that hasn't been put in situations to be on TV. There's some talent that hasn't been put in situations or positions to work with, you know, the talent that has that TV experience, that has that worldly experience. And that's okay. Like that, not everybody's at the same level, but where the problem is, they're not bringing themselves up to that level. And to me, that's when the agents have to step in. The agents have to not micromanage, but fill in the blanks, right? Like it almost feels like they're just being told to wrestle without being told the story of the match and the story of the angle, because all those go together, right? A match is here, right? So let's say it's promo, match, where the angle goes, like we were talking last week, right? The promo has to be the reason of why the match is happening, and then the match has to end with and then, right? And then this happens. And sometimes I feel like that's not occurring. There's like a block or a ripple in the chain that's going, and something's not being communicated to the in-ring, and that's harming the overall thought, at least from me, and the overall picture. And that's not even saying it's bad. It's just like it could be better. And because it could be better, I want it to be better.
And I would definitely echo that the show being 60 minutes is probably one of the best things it has going for it. I think it makes it very easy. Like any really good movie, even you watch it for 2 hours, you start checking your phone. It doesn't matter how good it is. You're just like, okay, when's this going to wrap up? It just it's hard.
I could not agree with you on. I like long movies.
it's hard. Basically, what I'm saying is it's hard to hook people for long times. Even like 2 hours, 2.5, right? Which, I mean, Raw is 3 hours. I think is SmackDown 3 hours now. Like,
I don't know.
Like, I mean,
I barely watch SmackDown.
There's a lot of like these shows run long, I think,
Yeah.
kind of just as a rule or as a standard now. And this one's short, and it makes it easy to watch. But I was gonna pose, like, you kind of answered it, but like, do you think it's just lack of communication between the wrestlers and the office that's going on? Because it's like,
I think like it's lack.
It seems like there's too many gaps to fill for the wrestlers to just do it, that maybe they're not getting the messages as far as what the directions are.
Yeah.
Right.
I would agree with that. And I think at the end of the day, some talent just lacks the experience. And sometimes when that happens, like I and this is just me, I personally be like, okay, we're going to tape this weekend, right? We tape Friday and Saturday, let's say. I'm going to get my Canadian talent that I'm pushing, and I'm saying, look, we'll give you food every day and like $150 to come up on Monday, work at the school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and hammer out these things. Because these things aren't something you're not retraining somebody, you're refocusing someone. And refocusing someone is easy. Like when I used to do my week-long camps here in St. Louis, people would change in 5 days so drastically that they would leave camp Friday, and by Sunday, I would get my match was so much different in a good way Saturday night that it's hard to even articulate what just happened. Like they look at things completely different. The right guide, the right teacher, the right person that can articulate it in a way that people understand helps people so much. And like that's why I love training. That's why I love doing seminars. Like widely, I would have to say that's typically the biggest feedback I get after a seminar. And you've done a seminar, so you may be able to vouch for this, or maybe you have a different opinion, which I'm not fishing for anything. But the one thing I tend to get after my seminar is that I broke down and articulated things in a way that people had never processed before. I'm not even saying that they weren't told this before. It's just the way that I try to demonstrate, instruct, articulate, and break down. It kind of broke past that barrier where maybe they couldn't quite grasp it before. And then, I mean, I've talked to people in a seminar, and you know, when you're talking to somebody and that light bulb goes off and it's like their whole demeanor changes. That's what I love about running seminars and training people, because that light goes off, goes, okay, I'm doing my job here. Because you're not just saying, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir, yes, I understand. It's like when we've talked on this podcast and I brought up, I can see the smile on your face because I can see it playing in your head. You see it happening. And that's how I try to teach. It's like if you do a spot, right? And I go, hey, try the spot this way. I never say, everybody tell me how it looks. I go, I want you to tell me how it feels. And then I ask the other people, how did it look compared to the other one? And every time it's like, man, it felt a lot smoother. And when I say smooth, I'm not saying it doesn't look like a wrestling match. It just felt like the flow is smoother, because the flow has to be smooth, but the work has to look like you're working a pro wrestling match, which yes can simulate a fight, but pro wrestling is not mixed martial arts. Pro wrestling is still pro wrestling. There's things that are illogical outside of pro wrestling that are logical in wrestling, like hitting the ropes, right? You're not going to hit the ropes in a fight, but you are going to hit the ropes in pro wrestling because we're taught that wrestling, hitting the ropes, gains momentum. You want momentum to hit somebody harder, right? So there's like these little things in wrestling that don't make sense in any other world of fighting, but in pro wrestling, we can still make sense of what pro wrestling is. And that's where I think, I mean, and that's just not just MLP. That's, I think, a broader issue that I'm seeing more and more in pro wrestling. But we're talking about MLP, and I definitely see it in MLP.
The best coaches, my experience, are ones that can take difficult, complex information and make it sound simple, and it gets people to comprehend it. Yeah. It's one thing to hand someone a textbook, but then it's someone else to explain it in an hour, right? Where the information gets across. And like, I'm not going to call people out of like who in MLPs maybe not doing their job correctly or whatever. Like, that's not what we're about. But like, I mean, there's disconnect somewhere, because we can see it because we're educated and we can talk about it and point it out. But see, I think what happens is when the normal fan watching it, they'll see it and they'll just disconnect, right?
Yeah.
So
and see, I like to relate it. It's like, it's professional wrestling, but it's a tier down from what I would want to really dive into. Like, I think that, and I might be wrong because I'm looking at it from a different lens and I grew up on different wrestling, but I don't know if 5-year-old me that was obsessed with wrestling would be as obsessed with wrestling if this was what I watch. And that's pretty much across the board. You know what I mean? Like, I still love wrestling because I've been so engrossed in it for so long. I mean, I turned 40 in December. I've literally spent my entire life watching pro wrestling. Like, I have WrestleMania 1 on VHS tape that was given to me when I was like 2 because my cousins were all older than me and just got out of wrestling. It's like I couldn't comprehend the VHS tape at 2, but the second I knew how to work a VCR or ask somebody, can you put that tape in? Like, I was watching wrestling. And it just, and then, you know, I evolved and started watching other things, but there was a fine structure of how things progressed, which allowed me to follow along, right? And when you think of media, whether it be TV, movies, whatever, they all follow a certain beat, right? Lion King, Rocky, like all these, you know, you learn to love Simba and his dad, the king, and then you learn to hate Mufasa, and then, you know, the big baby face has to go away and learn some new moves to come back and take out. Like, it's literally a wrestling match. It honestly is. It's and everything is developed in that. Books, movies, television shows. There is a way that these things are presented because it's got to hook you, it's got to get you interested in the characters, then it's got to keep you interested in the characters, and it's got to give you a reason to want to see the climax. And that's pro wrestling. And sometimes it's just like, oh, let's do this because it looks cool, or do this. And that's
and I was just going to interject. Like, it seems like a lot of the newer guys, they're so focused on like reinventing the wheel. And it's like, you don't.
You can't.
you can't probably.
You can't reinvent the wheel. You literally can't. I mean, like, this is a wheel, right? Yeah. This goes like this. How the F are you going to put something on this and this roll? It's not going to work because the car is going to bump every time and it's not going to work. You can't reinvent the wheel.
But also, there's nothing wrong with the wheel. Like, it just
rolls. Can make the wheel look different, right? I can put some rims on this. I can change the color of the rims. Maybe I put some lights on it. I don't know. But like, I can like make this more flashy, and that's fine. But it's still got to be a wheel because it has a job to do. And once I change the shape of the wheel, what am I going to do? Put square wheels on my car? That's not going to work. It's going to be the most terrible ride I've ever had in my life. But yeah.
There are some wrestlers that try square wheels and they don't know.
They try shapes I haven't even seen.
Yeah. So on that note, they opened with Jay Lethal versus Psycho Mike.
Yes.
I don't have specific notes as much, just on the whole, it kind of just seemed like they were just kind of doing stuff. I don't know. Where were you at? I don't know.
Listen, Jay Lethal's an absolute pro. One of my favorite opponents. I'll never forget WrestleMania. I'll never forget this for multiple reasons. First reason is we were the third match, WrestleMania weekend 2013. We came back, and I remember everybody going, I think that was the best third match I've ever seen on the show. And then I remember also Sarah Del Rey and Joey Matthews, who were agents in WWE, who specifically complimented when Jay was on the apron. I did the deadlift into the Falcon Arrow, and they specifically complimented that spot. And 2 weeks later on Raw, Claudio, who is dating Sarah Del Rey, did the spot to Kofi in the match. I was like, yeah, you guys did really like that spot, right? But like, Jay's an absolute fantastic wrestler, and Psycho Mike's over. Even his entrance, the crowd was chanting for him. He's got the body slam over. But in this instance, I think it's taking away from his matches. Like, I like that they teased the body slam a few times, but there was times where he like just gave it too long instead of going for it and letting Jay try something. Like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. Like the one spot where
they were out of rapport with the crowd.
Yeah, because like, and Mike was like doing the hitting the head on the apron, and like at one point it was literally just like you could tell his hand was just on him, like doing this, and it's like there's no rhyme or reason. It looked like Jay was running his own head into the ring apron, and that takes me out of it, because it's like, it's one thing, I know you're psycho, but you're psycho because you're not stopping, and then maybe you snap out of it. Like the psycho is, you start, the crowd's chanting, and then when they get to 10, both hands are on him, and then you just keep going, and the crowd's like, I can't count that fast, and then he calms down. That's psycho. But it just like, he's looking at the ref and he's not paying attention, and to me that takes me out of it.
I've seen him do this before, and I think like the premise, at least the way I've seen him do it, is that he gets like distracted, but he's unaware that he's hitting the guy, but that's not how it came off.
Right.
That's not how it came off.
And it's okay to be unaware. You can look around, but the motion still has to look like you're in control.
It came off really phony.
Yeah.
So, and like phony just kills everything. Yes.
But I do want to compliment that he did go for the body slam on the outside, which did turn around into the cutoff. Right? It was a slip slam, and then Jay pushed him into the post.
Now, one thing here, Jay's heat was through the commercial break.
Yes, which is not.
Yeah, because I was like, that's not good for anybody.
Because the viewers at home have to see the babyface in peril to want to see the comeback.
Right.
But really, it was mostly Mike up the entire match.
And I mean, maybe if we're trying to think the way they produced it, maybe it's because they knew Mike was going to lose, so they gave him. But like,
yeah, but I would almost rather have the heat start sooner and see some heat before the commercial break, and then see Mike do more after the commercial break.
But I mean, even they came back and Jay was on the top rope and he dropped the elbow and he missed it, and so he got like no heat.
Yeah, and that I agree with what you're saying. The reason for it, it's just hard to say. Like, you need to see a babyface in peril.
Well, I'm just pointing out kind of what they're thinking and what they're presenting. I'm not necessarily saying what I would do.
Right. No, but I agree with you. I mean, it absolutely makes sense. And they only have, as I said, we've run it into the ground. I think it's about 44 minutes without like that you actually have of on air time. So it makes sense because clearly they're doing something with this match, which I have my guess. But yeah, there was just like, that was off. And then listen, this is somebody who likes Mike. This is somebody who's wrestled Mike a bunch of times. This is somebody who's taken Mike to the States on multiple occasions, who's vouched for him on multiple occasions. He had no clue how to do a small package when Jay had him in the figure four, and I almost lost my mind. I'm like, all you have to do is grab the head. And like somehow he flipped him to his side and tried to give him just a lateral press. And I was like, it was such a mess up that like the recovery was sad. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay not to be perfect, but it just.
But that was kind of the whole match. Like, it was just kind of off the whole thing anyways. I don't, maybe there was just timing issues or something. But one point that I wanted to bring up that we talked about off air, because they had Mike lose the 6-man tag, which we talked about at length, we didn't like, and they had him lose again here. And it just seems like they're kind of giving it away that they have this guy that legitimately has a connection with the crowd, but they're not going to stay with him if they keep just having him lose.
And I'll tell you exactly what the argument with that is, because I've heard it a million times. Wins and losses don't matter. I know for a fact that wins and losses matter, because the crowd will turn on people. They get big opportunities and lose them constantly.
I'm only going to cheer for you so much. If you don't win,
the only person that I've seen genuinely break out of that is LA Knight.
Yeah.
He's like legitimately the only person I've seen that's just eating pins and
the one I was the one that came to mind was Kurt Hawkins. That was kind of more funny than anything, where he had the losing streak.
Yeah, but then he was and listen, I'm not saying anything bad about Kurt Hawkins, but how long after that did he end up getting released?
Yeah.
Not very long. You know what I mean? So it didn't really significantly do him any favors. Like the losing streak into the win didn't turn around into merch sales or popularity enough for the company to keep him. You know, I'm glad he's got a job. He's talented enough. Like, and that's nothing bad. You know what I mean? It's just, it's hard to say. I still would have said, I still would have rather his team lose, but maybe Zach take the pin and Mike be distracted with Jay Lethal, and that being why they did this.
Because like this loss they could get away with because he got fucked. But when you have back to back, I think it's no bueno. Yeah. Do you think he should protect the body slam a little bit more since it's so over?
Yeah,
I know it's still a body slam, but like it just seems like he's kind of giving it away. I don't know. I'm just riffing.
If you do it right, no, man. I had this match with ODD where we them trying to body slam me the whole match, and the absolute madness pop we got out of a false finish for the body slam.
That's
unbelievable. Like, I mean, one of my literally, I remember, it was like, right? And like, I still remember how nuts the crowd went. He worked it to where he couldn't get the body slam and then ended up getting it. Something is a lot about putting emphasis on something. Like today, some wrestling with me. I said, will you watch some old stuff with me? Yes, he's only ever watched like me or some newer stuff. I put on WrestleFest 85, Mid-South Wrestling, and the match was Ted versus Jake Roberts. And like there was like 3 teases for the DDT. The ref goes down. DiBiase goes to put it in his glove, but it slips and falls on the mat. And he goes to pick it up, and there's the DDT by Jake Roberts. And my son, who does not care about wrestling, that probably only watches it because he wants to watch it with his dad, he was like, and I was like, you like that? He's like, that was awesome. And I was like, yeah, like it made sense. And I started like trying to break down, like building up to something is what wrestling is about. And he literally goes, I think I understand it now. He's 10. And he understands it from watching it and me briefly explaining to him. So it's like, yeah, because I think he ended up giving Jay like 2 or 3 body slams.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I think if he's gonna do it, he should do it into a false finish because it's over enough, and the crowd's gonna keep chanting for it every time it grabs it. And there's a million ways to get out of it. There's slip slam, there's a small package. There's taking a body slam himself. Like there's a lot running him into the corner if you want. Like you can sweep his leg into something. There's multiple ways you can get out of it. But you know what? Time will tell, because he's only had 2 matches so far, and this was week 6. So like maybe that's something. Maybe it's fine how it is. I don't know. He hasn't won a match, so I don't know what he's planning to win matches with. But if the body slam's over, I would think you'd want to win the match with a body slam, really.
Yeah.
You know? So maybe he overuses it.
So the swirl comes up on the apron.
Yep.
Which then gets Billy Gunn and Zach Gowen from the previous match come out to save the day. They bump the ref.
Which was god awful.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that looks so bad.
What was specifically the ref bump? Because I just wrote down ref bump.
Blake Christian pushed Billy Gunn, and Harry was like bent over.
There you go.
So it didn't even really look like he got hit. Like he should have been standing up. But he bent over, because at least if he stood up, Billy could have gave him like a good splash and his back would have hit the apron. But it just looked off. And it's Blake Christian, which, hey, great wrestler, but he pushed Billy Gunn, who's 6'6" and looks like
even the visual is off.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and I understand it has to be the heel pushing the baby face into the ref for the bump. I get that part. But the bump just did not. It really looked.
Yeah, like you can control the bump, and you can also, maybe the heel doesn't necessarily push the baby face into the ref for that spot. But so like, yeah,
or or it could have been as simple, because Blake Christian is in the match, so it's not going to, like, maybe Billy pops him and he sells off near the ring, and then Billy's charging with something and he pulls the referee in and he squishes the ref.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that makes more sense in the moment. But as I said, it just feels like things are rushed and they're not well thought out. Like, I sometimes do this. Like, have you ever called a match with somebody and they're like, I'll just throw a clothesline there. And it's like, wait, I've already ducked 2 clotheslines. We're not ducking a third one just because you can't use your mind to think of another position to get to there. And it's like, wrestling is so endless. You have so many options to do so many things that you got to think. You got to use your brain, especially if you're going to plan stuff. And even so, when you're calling stuff, you have to have a Rolodex of ideas, or you're just going to do the same thing. It's going to be like, oh, I need you to go off the rope, so it's going to be a whip. Oh, I need you to reverse, so it's going to be a reverse whip. Oh, I need you to sell into the corner, so I'm just going to bump you, and then, which we'll get to this at some point. I'm sure this podcast will develop into other things. But like, I'm going to bump you. And then like people get bumped and then they stand up and walk to the corner instead of selling to the corner. And it's always like, I need you to the apron. What's the easiest way to get to the apron? Oh, shoot me to the corner and I'll flag you to the apron. Or I'll go to shit can you. Instead of you going to floor, you get to the apron. It's like, there's a million ways to get to the apron and nobody's using. It's the same stuff over and over and over and over, and I'm going to say over as many times to get the point across, and over and over and over again. There's so much similar stuff. It's like, just be a student of the game. That's it. You're at the tapings probably at noon, so watch some friggin' matches. Like, that's ideas, it. Yeah, just get some ideas, or you have free time. If this is what you want to do with your life, then you have to be obsessed with it. I mean it. It has to be an obsession.
And it's like the number one question we're always asking and talking about on this podcast is the why.
Yes.
And that's exactly it. It's okay. So yeah, it's one thing to say, sell to the ropes, but okay, why are you going to get there and how?
Yeah.
So, but they do the ref bump. And Mike had the pin, doesn't get it, and then he gets jumped
off the body slam.
Yeah, off the body slam.
He had the crowd counting. He had the crowd counting too, like it should have been over. Yeah. Then he went outside and dragged the ref in, and before the ref could get in, Steve Maclin made his debut and laid him out
from the crowd.
But even like, I could tell this was supposed to pop somebody. Did you see Mike Sell like laying on top of Harry?
Yeah.
It's I could tell, like, you didn't need to lay on top. That was just to get a reaction. but not from the fans. It was to get a reaction from Harry. It's like, you're on TV now. There's no having fun. This is get over time. Right? The fun comes when you're over. And I felt like that was one of those spots like, oh, when you hit me, I'm just going to flop on Harry because it will be funny. And I don't know. I want this show, and I want Mike to be over. I hope that within a year, everybody wants to sign Psycho Mike. But it's like, you can't do this stuff that you do everywhere else because now you're on TV. And some things get over in small rooms that don't get over on national TV. And this is not a knock on him, but think about how over Colt Cabana was on the Indies. How over did Colt Cabana get in WWE?
Not at all.
Because some things work for a smaller room. And Psycho Mike has to develop his things to work for small rooms and big rooms.
So Maclin jumps him. He says some stuff in the camera, like it was like a small promo. He said something.
I have nobody controlling me now.
Yeah,
basically
something
what
like
he
that.
said after he left TNA.
I guess he's a free agent. Whatever is what he was trying to say. But yeah. And then
basically he gets to do whatever he wants now because he has nobody telling him how to be, who to be, what to do.
I guess that's why
which is good. I think Maclin's great. Like I do. I think he's very talented. I wish that MLP had the kind of backing that they could sign people even for like a year at $50,000 and let them go do indies so they have some steady income while they do stuff because of what they're taping once every 3 weeks. They're not doing a ton of shows where they bring people in. I know they just did the thing at the Hamilton Tiger Cats, but like they're not running a lot of shows. And it's hard because if you don't sign people, what if Maclin signs with WWE tomorrow? Then you debut him like this and you can't, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the really hard thing about running TV without being able to supplement people's real income which I'm happy they're working with AEW because clearly, they're able to use Jay Lethal when they want. They're able to use Billy Gunn when they want. They're able to use the Swirl when they want. Like, that's good. Johnny TV, I'm sure, is going to be on a couple episodes coming up too. So, like, there's quite a few people they can use from AEW. It's like, I fear for the other guys because they got some talent. They really do. And Maclin's one that I'm excited for, actually.
Then we got a PCO promo, and this
good
is
stuff.
Bang on. Like, it's it gets
PCO knows who he is. The video is always cool. Like, you want to see him wrestle after you see those.
Makes you want to see him wrestle.
Yeah.
And then we had a Priscilla Kelly. It was like a vignette. It was like 10 seconds. I don't.
Yeah.
Do you know much about Priscilla Kelly?
I mean, I knew her before she went to WWE, and I knew her, her stuff in WWE. So I'm familiar with her. It was basically just a preview. I forget what they called it. I'm trying to see if I have the notes. I think it just said a Priscilla Kelly thing. But she's wrestling next week. So I think that was just like, hey, you're going to see her. You know what I mean? But even before we move forward, I am going to say right here, right now, I believe that it will be Jay Lethal and Steve Maclin versus Psycho Mike and Adam Copeland on October 3rd.
I could see that.
I think that's where I think I'm going. I think we get Mike the big win, Adam Copeland celebrating with the big win.
There you go.
I could see them doing a spot where it's like Adam, body slams one and Mike body slams the other, and then they have a good moment. Like and Steve Maclin and Jay Lethal are great performers. Look like they're actually performing at high level and trying to inflict pain without inflicting pain, which you don't want Adam to get hurt when he's under contract to AEW. So those are two great opponents. And putting him in a tag match, relieves him of having to do a singles match. And what better way to get Psycho Mike a win than him taking the pin or him giving the pin in a match with Adam Copeland, and then you have footage of him celebrating with Adam Copeland. If I was in control I think that's the match I would go to.
Yeah, I'm not really too sure what else you would do with Adam at this point, because even like we'll get to the end of the show, like the titles are spoken for, and I think it's probably a tag just because of his age,
right?
And like that, like I mean, obviously Jay and Steve are very good, so they'll be able to keep him safe, and I think that checks on, and you get an upper comer over, give him the rub. I think that checks a lot of boxes, logically speaking. So we'll see we'll have to see and tune in and see if that's where it goes.
Let's hope.
But I guess speaking of Adam, we got another Adam Copeland promo, and he really added some color to the situation of like having Canada have this presence and being able to give opportunities to people in Canada.
Yeah, it was so much more than that too. I remember him. The one thing that really stuck out was him going. I forget the channel that he mentioned, but he said, I remember turning on channel so and so and watching Maple Leaf Wrestling, and that made me want to be a wrestler. So I hope this generation now tunes into Maple Leaf Pro and they have that same. So like he's putting a lot of emphasis, one on Canada, two on the current, product of Maple Leaf Pro, the past and history of wrestling in Canada on TV. And then, like you're saying, I think one of the close to the end lines was like, these are opportunities that I wish I had when I was breaking in, but I didn't. And this opens up opportunities for the Canadian talent to be seen. And it's such a hotbed for wrestling. And there's, it's been such a great thing for wrestling for so many years. And, I think what was the line? He's like, it started with like, I watched Brett and Owen, and Brett and Owen watched, I forget who he said. I thought I had it written down, but maybe I didn't.
I remember the
line.
But
you know what I say? Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about. He's talking about, Bret Hart made me, want to be a wrestler that represents Canada, and they watched so-and-so, and then it went back and back. So he's putting a lot of emphasis on the history of Toronto and Canadian wrestling, which I hope comes across really well for them, because as I said, I hope one day they're running weekly all across Canada and can hire people at least for decent nightly wages, right? Like, I'm not talking down, but imagine if they could offer Psycho Mike and Sheldon and Bryce and Brent like $250, $300 a night, and they're wrestling 3 times a week. You know what I mean? Like that's $750, and then if they get over, then their merchandise goes up, and then they can, yeah, you know what I mean? And then they can go and apparently they've all getting work visas, so then they can go and wrestle in the States. So if like Maple Leaf Pro finds a way to run, maybe during the week in Canada, because weekday shows in Canada, I felt always did better than weekday shows in the States.
Right. Well, so I know like, Thursdays does good here.
Yeah.
And like, like it's Mondays, like they just work. I don't know. It's again, like we've hit all these points. It's big opportunity. We hope we can see this grow, because that's really
I gotta say, bringing in Adam Copeland, I think is such a huge thing, and I hope they bring him in a couple days early and he does a lot of press for them. Local news, local TV, whatever he can. Just, I know it's sold out, but just to get them talking about Maple Leaf Pro, because he would be a perfect person to try to set up with TSN for him to be on TSN like the day of the show or the day before the show, because he has such a large name to talk about it. And then imagine hearing him. I don't know what shows are on TSN now, because I haven't lived in Canada in years, but imagine him being on a show at like 4 p.m. on Thursday or the Friday before that, and be like, hey, we have a sold out show, but you can check it out online here. And remember, watch MLP every week on midnight on like some people are like, damn, there's wrestling on midnight on TSN. At least let's set the DVR, right?
Yeah.
So like that's a very good. Because, I mean, the majority of his career has been at such a high level that he's such a recognizable name with pro wrestling, and especially with Canadian pro wrestling. He's a great asset to have, and I hope that they can utilize him for even more when it comes to that show.
So the next match came out. We had PCO versus Kris Chambers. So
yes,
Kris Chambers came out, the half-baked kid, which he's a stoner, but he's not playing the stoner on TV, I guess. I know it's like I've seen his other work.
Think at his own shows he like can smoke a joint in the building and stuff. Yeah, he can't really do it here.
Right. But he's still kind of running with it, but they probably told him not to do it, but whatever. Like this was mostly just PCO. He mostly took most of the match.
And I want to cover PCO did the same entrance he did when he did the run in, in the coffin with the jumper cables, which I thought was great. And yes, it was definitely a highlight for PCO. And yes, I'm friends with Kris Chambers and rode the roads with him. But I do have to say that like Kris was the right person to put in here because I thought he made everything that PCO did to him look really good.
Yeah, like he was there for everything, and
he was selling great.
Well, we're wondering if PCO is just old or if he's like actually working the gimmick where it's like he's kind of really stiff moving.
I think he's beat up.
Yeah,
because remember when you got to remember when he returned, he was going effing crazy.
Oh yeah. He
he did some crazy stuff to get to make sure he started making that money. He had that Ring of Honor run, he had the indie run, he had the first TNA run that he did, and he was doing those monster ball matches and stuff. And when you're getting to that age, and he'd wrestled for how many years before that? I mean, I know my joints don't feel great. Sometimes I'm walking like he is around the house because of my knees. So it's like, it's got to be. If I would put my money on it, I feel like he's doing the gimmick because he knows his limitations. You know what I mean?
He's outthinking everybody.
Yeah. But honestly, I thought Kris did a friggin' fantastic job. His facial expressions were on. He was selling really, really well for him. Took all of his offense really great. And when he was doing stuff, he did look believable. I know he didn't get a lot in on the match, but I thought he looked believable. I really, really think that Kris was the star of this match in the sense that without somebody who was going to be able to make the stuff look good like he did, it wouldn't have the same effect.
It could have gotten ugly easily.
Yes,
if
very much so.
The wrong guy was there for sure.
Yeah. And Kris, I think Kris started like a year before I did. So this has got to be
a long time,
25 years in. Yeah. So like he's talented, and I know he runs the school. Shout out to his school. Is it still called Super Kicked?
Super Kicked, yeah.
Yeah. He's got some great students that come out of there, and I know he still runs the school, and he's very knowledgeable, very passionate. So if you're in the Toronto area, look him up because he's got a school going.
So PCO hits the moonsault, and
which I want to remember.
Right. Yeah.
When he debuted, he went up, but that's episodic, right? Yeah. They set it up, they took it away, and they gave it back. Like that's pro wrestling. That's how you don't have to do it every time, but that's how I
like for nothing. PCO's been around forever and knows this, and he set that up purposely for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's why sometimes especially when I'm in a town that is not on TV or something, if I'm the heel or if I'm the baby face, either way, I like to do something like it looks like I'm about to do something impressive because the fans want to see that impressive move, then it gets taken away, and then what do I have for later? Maybe in my comeback or for a false finish, I have this thing that I put emphasis on that the crowd wanted to see, but the heel took away. Like the easiest thing in the game is, okay, babyface, go to give me a cool dive that everybody's gonna get into and everybody wants to see it, and then I shut it down because you get them going, yeah, we're about to see this cool dive. Shut it down, boo. Then we work, then it's comeback, dive in. 1, 2, kick out. The crowd believed it was a false finish, knowing the match never ends on a dive, which is what we do. We have to sprinkle fairy dust all over. We have to do this, and we have to mirage things. So even though when the crowd knows that it's never been a finish, that we can make them believe it's going to be a finish. But nobody knows how to detail the match in a way to get the reaction you want.
So listen to the show.
Yeah. I'm trying to listen. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So now I'm going to go down to the river and grab a cup and just hold them out and drink it.
So moonsault finish. PCO's got his hand raised. Yeah, Taylor Rising comes in with the low blow, which PCO no sells, which then gets Chambers to come in with the ring bell and gets PCO to like convulse in the ring, and the heels just kind of power.
I'm kind of shocked that Shotzi didn't make the save.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to bring up, because that's already advertised for next week. It's a mixed tag, but so it's like, where did she come from?
Yeah, why? Like I mean, maybe they do a promo next week but they already announced it on this week.
Yeah,
right. That match had a match graphic.
Yep, it did
later on in the show. So why didn't you have Shotzi run out? Yeah, I don't know. I
mean, if I was gonna have Shotzi make the save, I probably would have rearranged a number of things. But
yes, agreed.
But it's like, okay, they jumped PCO, and then it's like next week we're gonna have a mixed tag with this girl who has nothing to do with any of this,
right?
Except they need a girl, because I guess it's a guy and a girl against PCO. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know, but
yeah, I'm there with you.
Next up, we have Dani Luna versus Giselle Shaw for the title. So they've been talking about this for a number of weeks and trying to build it, and they had me interested, at least. But
because I want to articulate my thoughts in a way that's not going to rub people the wrong way.
They came out, I felt like they had a good lockup.
Yeah.
They did. They do this thing. This is something I wanted to bring up, where I don't remember specifically, but like as an example, you could do headlock takeover, head scissor, and both of them just stand up and kind of just stare at each other. Yeah. And me thinking realism and logic, like why do you stop?
So
I know it gets a reaction, and I can but I'm also
let me speak to that realism.
Yeah.
Now remember, we're talking about pro wrestling realism, right? So on a standoff spot like that, it was teasing the seated clothesline and the knee by Giselle, which she's used. So then after that, why they do the standoff in this instance is, okay, I tried this move, it didn't work. I tried this move, it didn't work. We got to regroup. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's because wrestling is a chess match, right? And you don't want to rush to move your next chess piece, because if you rush, you could move it wrong and then it gets taken off the board. So, like I said, there's always different ways to look at things. There are some instances where you don't pause because you want to have some form of realism. But with standoffs, it's more like, oh, okay, I didn't expect you to follow up my sweep cover with your sweep cover. Or in this instance, I didn't expect you to move out of the way of my kick when I moved out of the way of your sliding clothesline. So now I got to rethink my strategy. So that is where the thought process of that is, right? But my problem is Dani Luna did an exploder to go for the sliding clothesline that she missed. And then soon after this spot, they went into another spot to where Dani Luna hits a body slam and hits the sliding clothesline.
Mm-hmm.
A body slam or an exploder? Which move is going to keep somebody down for longer to be able to hit the sliding clothesline?
Oh, the exploder.
Right. So it should have been switched.
Yeah.
And then there was an O'Connor roll spot where like Dani Luna grabbed a waist lock and you could tell it was Giselle running into the ropes because the spot is we have to do an O'Connor and I have to back roll her off. Like, no, why would you run yourself to the ropes? Unless you're going to run to the ropes and grab the ropes to break the hold. But if you're going to do that hold on spot, the person giving the move has to show the forward momentum into the O'Connor roll. And again, listen, if they ever come across this or somebody, one of their friends comes across this is not hey, these two girls suck. I think both of these ladies are fantastic wrestlers.
Yeah.
But there's levels to wrestling. There's levels to knowledge. There's levels to understanding why something happens, when it should happen, how it should happen. And those little things are why we have this podcast, because it breaks that down to the fundamental level of why, right? So, like, I'm not going to run into the ropes. One, I'm pulling the person behind me. And Dani Luna's stocky. Like, there ain't nobody, Giselle ain't going to be able to run away from a waist lock. Like, it's just not going to happen. So you have to let Dani Luna take the momentum. And then back to the clothesline. This is what I see all the time. You take the move, and the move sends you to the floor. But here is another instance where it was take the move and then roll out of the ring. Right? So if I'm taking a seated clothesline, very simple. I take the seated clothesline and it makes me back roll. And as that back roll, I turn to my side and then I keep rolling them out of the ring because the momentum of that clothesline is what sent me out of the ring. And to put a more emphasis on that, she tried the sliding clothesline earlier, which didn't work, which I ducked because I knew it hurt. So now I put emphasis on it, then I take it, and that directly takes me out. And that just happens way too much, where it's like you're doing two sells. You're selling the move and then selling outside. You sell the move to the outside, right? Any selling you're done can be on the floor.
Way more smooth and more impressive.
And it looks like that move sent you out. Like, even though you're the heel, that's not a move where you powder from. You want to put over the baby face where that momentum of that move has sent you to the floor.
And I think a little bit jumping ahead, but like the example you gave and then the finish, I think just taking some time and kind of piecing it together and putting some thought into it. And it's not that the wrestlers are, or that we think negative of the wrestlers. It's more like if they had just kind of done a little bit of more thought into it, it would have been way more effective. But
this is also the agent, because look,
yeah,
Dani Luna and Giselle are phenomenal wrestlers, and yes, they have experience in TNA. But I know firsthand, and maybe it's changed. Maybe the agents are far better, but the agents didn't really guide you there. Mm-hmm. Like, I know I had D'Lo. D'Lo specifically asked to agent all my matches. Do you want to know why D'Lo specifically asked to agent all my matches?
Tell me.
Because he didn't have to agent any of my matches. He'd come in, what do you got? I'd tell him, he goes, you know what you're doing. Like, that was it. Like, he specifically asked because then it was an easy job for him. Now, I don't know if that means he doesn't agent other things. I don't know. I'm sure he works with Scott. I don't know if he agent in this match. I don't even know if he's in an agent position. But I'm just saying, like, the agents need to step in because it's the agent's job to help talent progress, right? So you want them to progress and start understanding, which again is just like we were talking earlier, break down and articulate not what to do, but why you're doing it. If you have people understand something, it's much easier to do. And once you break it down to where they understand, then it becomes their way of thinking, right? It doesn't just become, oh, this match was good because we had a good agent. It starts to rewire your brain, and it starts going, you call something and then you ask yourself the question, is that how it should go? Maybe we should change it up a bit. Maybe this piece should go here and this should go here. And that's just not happening. And it's not just exclusive to this match. And once again, it's not saying, oh my God, all these wrestlers suck. It's like, I'm speaking from 24 years of very high quality wrestling. Like, you got to think, 2004, I wrestled Chris Sabin. I was 2 years into my career. 2005, I was wrestling Bobby Roode, Samoa Joe, Rhino, Johnny Devine, Shark Boy, Tyson Kidd. 2006, I'm wrestling Too Cold Scorpio and Trevor Murdoch and Roderick Strong. 2007, I'm wrestling, you know what I mean? It's just like, I had a very, I mean, even if my first name match was in 2004 and I haven't had a match since 2024, that's 20 years of learning from amazing people in the ring. And then I went to Harley Race's camps to learn from guys from Noah and guys from WB and Harley himself. And I did seminars. And then I went to New Japan and listened to people call the match and understood the philosophy. Then I went to Mexico and worked with those guys. And I had a long career of working with some of the best wrestlers to ever wrestle. And if I was on a show and a legend was there, I was the first one to go. I mean, Tracy Smothers, there wasn't a time where I didn't ask him to watch my match, and he would just be like, oh, come on, Elgin, I don't need to watch your match. I go, yes, you do, because you might see something that I don't understand, and you can break it down to me. Like, even when I came back to Canada, I would ask Tyson Deuce to watch every match I ever had in Canada, even after I was doing Ring of Honor in New Japan and would come to an indie show, because I respected Tyson. I knew he had knowledge. He had been around a long time, been around a lot of great people, and he might see something that I don't see, because hindsight's always 20/20. So it's like, I don't know. People just, maybe they're not asking the right questions from the right people, if they're asking any questions at all.
So I think on that note, Dani Luna hit the apron suplex, which was super impressive. And
we got to back up, though. We got to see. I like where you are, but how did they get to the apron?
Dani blew her comeback, I wrote down, but I think it was the flying clothesline, or the.
Let's just flag her over. It was just a flag.
Yeah.
And then it was the suplex, and then it was picking up for the Luna landing, and then Giselle ripped off the buckle.
There you go.
Okay. So what if we went for the Luna landing first? Because Dani was up before we went to the apron. It was like it was like a just quick stop, whip reverse, then the flag to get her on the apron and hit her and go for the German. So what if we changed it? And this is what I'm talking about. We have puzzle pieces. Put them in the right place. We grab the Luna landing. That's where Giselle's tugging on the turnbuckle. The turnbuckle rips off, which changes where they're going. And then we get to the ropes, but Giselle slips off the fireman's carry onto the apron. Then block hit. Then German suplex. Boom. 1, 2, Then after that near fall, the referee grabs the turnbuckle and goes to put it back on the corner, because that's illegal. He's got to put it back.
Which doesn't happen at all.
And now Dani Luna's going for the Luna landing again, right? And then slips out the back door, and Giselle pushes her to the referee, but she stops, and the referee cowers. Then she turns, and then from that, Giselle grabs the full Nelson backbreaker into the face plant. Referee got to get away from the buckle again because it's a near fall. 1, 2, kick out. Then, okay, we're going to do this. Then Giselle goes for the knee, but Dani Luna moves. Giselle goes to the rope, springboard in, then into the destroyer. 1, 2, kick out. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Then we go to the finish. Instead, it was rip the buckle, move out of the way, get to the corner suplex, or that corner suplex, then grab this, then rip the buckle. Then it was into the destroyer. Then it was into the full Nelson backbreaker face plant, which in common sense, this and that is not as big as a Canadian destroyer, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like they have the right movements and the right moves, but they're in the wrong place to tell the right story. And then Giselle stopped, and I understand the camera's there, so she did like a big smiley face, like she knew what was coming.
Well, but this is the thing. That had to been, I'm guessing that was set up by the production, right? Like the camera shot was like too purposeful, I think. Maybe it was coincidence, but like I think they like set that up where Giselle she stops and like realizes, oh, the buckle's exposed. Okay, I'll throw her into it, and that's how I'll win. Which like it's, I don't know. It's like it's so superficial.
It came off wrong because Giselle had moved out of the corner way too soon for Dani Luna to continue running, even though she pushed her. Timing was off a little bit about that. As I said, the flow of the last few moves was off. I would have positioned it that way. And once again, the agent should have heard the order of things and switched. I mean, I literally watched it and go, wait. This should have happened first. Then that should have happened. And then this should, and it's like, the agent should hear that in the vision. Like maybe I'm just weird. And what I mean by that is like, if me and you are calling a match, let's say, as we're talking, there's like a film reel going on in my head and it's showing me how it's going. And not only is it showing me how it's going, it's inserting, okay, here's where the crowd's going to react. How do I need them to react right there? That reaction is what I want there. How do we have to do it to get the reaction I want there? Because the reaction that this is getting is the reaction I need here, right? Because like I said, we're building, and the reaction we want is at the peak for the finish. So if I put something here that gets a huge reaction, and this is not going to top it, it has to be switched in order. I also don't like that there was that little shitty pad still on the buckle. It should have been a completely exposed buckle. But that's just me. You know what I mean? Like they had the cover, not that like metal showing.
Like a metal. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And
but does that make sense what I said about the match, the structure for how they should have went?
Yeah, and I think like to your point, it's like they just kind of shoved a bunch of puzzle pieces together and didn't really think, okay, when we do this, where's the crowd going to be? And when we do this, where's the crowd going to be? And if they had asked that, even if they just asked that when they were putting it together, they might have changed things up.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, when they ripped the buckle off and the ref just stood there, I got mad.
Yeah. And at one point, I think it was after, that's what had happened. See, the belt, when she went out to get the belt, that should have been after the destroyer, not after the full Nelson backbreaker face buster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because she had kicked out of the destroyer, like the up and over spinning destroyer, 1-2 kick out, and then she went right into this kick out.
Like she got nothing out of that.
And then she went and got the belt, and then the ref pulled the belt, and then she turned around, and that's where Dani Luna grabbed the deal.
She really so the ref took the belt, and then she like literally just walked into the move. Like even the transition was kind of just like just like but the potential's there. I think that's
very much so.
It's there. We just kind of need to pull it out. But Giselle wins.
But they
again.
did some great, but they did some great stuff. Like
For sure.
Dani went for like the slingshot Blue Thunder, and Giselle had turned it into a sunset flip, and then she ended up catching that back later. Like, I want to make it clear, especially when it comes to women's wrestling, because some fans, I'm not saying women fans or women wrestlers, some fans make it sound like if you critique a women's match that you're sexist or feel a certain way. If I was running a show and I had the option to book those two girls, they would be at the top of my list. Like, I think they're both fantastic wrestlers. Mm-hmm. It's just, as I said, levels of experience are different, right? And there's everything. It's like playing a video game. You can play on easy mode, you can play on medium difficulty, you can play, like, there's all different levels when it comes to wrestling knowledge. And just because somebody might have more wrestling knowledge and see things differently, that's not saying that those people aren't talented, that they aren't good. It's just like, there's always room for improvement. Just like if I had a match tomorrow that I was super happy with, and the world was like, that was a fantastic match, there is definitely somebody that could watch it and would be like, I would do this differently. And then I'd listen to them and go, you know what? They're right. They're right. Because there's always, one, hindsight's 2020. So looking at something after, but I've said this a million times. Like, if you tell me what your match is going to do, like I said, it's literally like I permanently have a projector behind me in a backpack. And when I talk wrestling, that projector like goes into my brain and I start seeing it happen. Like, I literally see things happen. I know that sounds weird, but I don't just think, I envision it. Like, it literally goes in beats. Okay, this goes, the crowd reacts here. If the crowd reacts this way there, what's the next big crowd reaction I want? Okay, let's get to that point. All right, well, the finish is here. So what do we have to fill from this reaction to this? And then it just goes through my head and I go, okay, I got it. Let's go. Right. And maybe I would not think that that's unique to me. I would have to believe that other people, look at wrestling and think that same way. But that is definitely how it works for me. And that's why I enjoy, like, when I was agenting for CIW, I had a lot of fun with it, because I knew the story. So I knew that what finishes had to be done to go. And then I knew all the wrestlers' moves. So I would lay something out for them for the finish. And then I remember I had like Brandon Day and Freedom Ramsey do a spot. And Freedom Ramsey was doing like the Superman punch, and Brandon Day was doing a lariat. So I laid out a finish where it was like something, and like kind of where the Superman punch bounced Brandon Day off the ropes, and then they fell on each other in a double pin because we were doing an angle for the number one contender. And they come back, they go, how do you know all of our stuff? I go, man, I watch so much wrestling. I've wrestled both of you guys. I watch all the shows. I know what you guys do. And then I just got to go, okay, well, this is part of the story. What's the best way to do it? And then I tell them the finish. And then before I'm like, hey, man, just tell me the rest of the match. Okay, maybe switch this right here. Maybe make sure you tease this there. And then let's go off to the races. Like, it's wrestling fundamentally is easy. But the hard part is getting all that fundamental knowledge to make it easy, right? I think I've said it on this podcast. At this point in my life, and for many years now, wrestling is probably the easiest thing I do. But my goodness, was it a lot of work to make it to the point where it was the easiest thing I
25 years, right?
Yeah, like,
so
it's just
a long time.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But now it's like I could literally sit there with my feet up, my eyes closed, and be like, what do you want to do today, brother? Oh, okay. Let's do it this way, that way, blah, 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 blah. Like, and that's just because not only was it 24 years of wrestling, I was obsessed, man. All I did was watch wrestling. I mean, I was in Japan and the guys were like, "Hey, we're going out sightseeing today." I was like, "Nah, there was an All Japan show last night. I want to see what Kento Mahara did last night." Or, "No, I plan on watching some old Mid-South or some JCP or something from back home." Like, I wanted to be on top of my game. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, doing stuff that was already being done. I wanted to know my opponents like the back of my hand. So when I went to have a match with them, one, I could call it in a way that also not just platform me, platform them, and presented us both in the best light possible. But also, if something went off track, if I know what my opponent does in every match, in every scenario, then it's a lot easier to get on track.
So following that, they had a Steve Maclin promo, which they claimed was during the commercial break.
Yeah.
I think you were foreshadowing this earlier.
Yes.
And because
it was just a basic, it was just a basic promo that Steve Maclin's here to cause mayhem.
No explanation.
And he's mayhem. It's like, even if it was that same promo, but it was like, and Psycho Mike, you were just the first person to experience what real mayhem is because you just happened to be the first person out in that ring tonight. That's all it had to take. Just something to explain why he chose to attack Psycho Mike. Right? Like, that's it.
And they're not for nothing. They're wrestling next week.
Right. Yeah. Because we have the full card announced for next week. Right. It's Shotzi and PCO versus Kris and Taylor Rising. Mm-hmm. It's Maclin versus Psycho Mike. And what else was it?
There's a girls 4-way.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got Giselle Shaw, Dani Luna, Nikki Storm, and Priscilla Kelly.
Yep.
Chambers and Taylor Rising versus Shotzi and PCO, Psycho Mike versus Steve Maclin. And wasn't there a fourth match?
It says Rudra debuts.
That's
I think
right.
it's a segment or maybe not a match.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or a squash, which is
sure.
Fun.
Yeah.
And then we come out with following that was
the Stu 2 belts comes out. He's got both his championships. Did you see a thing on social media that they're retiring the Champions Grail? It's only going to be one belt.
Yeah,
I don't know if I saw that. Okay,
I know. No, I didn't see it online, but I assume that's what they were doing.
Okay, yeah, because I was like, okay, well, all right, but so and even like it just seemed odd because this Stu 2 belts thing seems to be getting a little bit of momentum.
Yeah,
but
right.
So he comes out. He was pretty quick. He just says, I can't remember the last time I felt so proud to be the best in Canada or be Maple Leaf Pro and best in the world, which then gets Josh Alexander to come out with his Maple Leaf Pro belt. And they close out the show with both of them holding up their belts and pretty straightforward. I guess the question is, when are they going to do this match, or if it's going to be in October?
October 3rd. It has
to be. Could it be in 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
They would be silly to not save that for October because they'll have a good match.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
I'm going to say one thing, though. I absolutely effing hated how they were dressed.
Yeah, I give you that.
They're both champions. Now, listen, I have come out, like, for instance, when I debuted in TNA, I had a muscle shirt and shorts, but I was super jacked, super tanned, and I was facing off with Brian Cage. So it's like I wanted that look, and I also wasn't the champion. But, like, Stu had a cutoff T-shirt. Josh was a little bit better because he just kind of had, like, a black, tight, muscle shirt, which was fine. But it's like, we haven't seen Josh on TV, and you're the original champion. I'd be looking like a champion. And Stu just won both belts, and he's kind of in athletic gear. I would have liked to see them in some better clothes to
especially
be
because
representatives of the championship.
Yeah, like you're not wrestling,
right?
So
yeah,
I don't know.
And listen, guys, for a little bit of advice, if you don't have nice clothes, go get nice clothes. Keep your receipt. Take a screenshot of yourself on TV wearing that just in case. Then file it on your taxes because it's a write-off.
There you go.
Yeah, trust me. I would buy a new pair of Jordans before every TV taping.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, as long as I wore them on TV, I would write them off.
That's weird. So we talked a bit about next week already. I don't have too much else. It's I mean, we'll just have to keep plugging with this.
I would have to say this is kind of where they start building to October because they have 5 weeks.
I think they've only got 2 or 3 weeks left, and I'm curious.
But I'm saying until the show, I know they only taped like.
Well, this is my question because from what I know, they're done at St. Clair's College for the rest of the year. So, if they've only got 2 or 3 weeks left, is there going to be like a gap and then October, or do they got? Or actually, they have the Indian Reserve show. Maybe they're taping that for TV. I don't know, but
yeah, that would be good because those crowds. Is that still Nick Nitro running that?
It's Nick Nitro. It's a big. It would be a big setting. So
when I did Nick Nitro, that show, it was when he brought in Hogan, X-Pac. Yeah. No, I'm very familiar with Nick Nitro. Because I remember Dani O from the O Show did not like me. And Nick loved me. So Nick calls me. He's like, I really want you on the show, brother. I got Hogan coming in. It's going to be really good. I go, I'm free to do it. And then Donnie called me. He's like, don't you ever go behind my back to try to get booked. And I said, Donnie, shut that fuck up. I didn't go behind your back. Nick hit me up. And then Just Incredible missed his flight. And guess who they called to work with X-Pac? And then I remember Donnie going, you're the perfect person. I thought about working with X-Pac. That now that Just Incredible wasn't there, I go, yeah, my fees doubled now. And he's like, what? And I go, well, you were a dick last time we talked on the phone, and I know you're calling me because Nick wants me on the show, and I'm going to work with X-Pac well, so I need double my rate. And then they paid it, and then that night in front of me, he goes, hey, tomorrow, Pac, who do you want to work with? He's like, I'll just work with Elgin again. And then Donnie goes, can we do your regular rate? I was like, nah, sounds like double to me.
Double pay.
Yeah, but Nick, sidebar, but Nick was always a solid dude, and those shows on that reserve are phenomenal.
Well, that's going to do it. We're going to wrap it up. The Book to Draw podcast, the smartest wrestling podcast, closes out another week, and we're going to hit you up next week. I'm Mr. Marvelous.
And I'm many different nicknames, Michael Elgin. I might come up with a new one for my return. We'll have to figure that out. But together we make a pretty damn good team, and we talk some pretty damn good wrestling that the wrestlers out there should be paying attention to, because you're going to learn. This is literally like almost a seminar every week, and I'm being serious.
And
it really is.
I'll just say you're welcome.